My name is Deanna Ratcliffe. I was born and raised here in Bentonville, so I'm a Bentonville native. My father was a Bentonville native, and my mother was born and raised in Gravette.
So tell me about your family. Who were your parents and what did they do?
My dad, he is passed away. It was 10 years ago in March, but he was well known around the community. His name was Tom Clark. He had always had sold real estate in Bentonville and Benton County. Had a company called National Realty, and my dad and all the Clark brothers and sisters were raised just a few miles east of here on a family farm, which is still in the family. We still have yearly family reunions there. My mom was born and raised in Gravette, and she has been with Farm Bureau Insurance for pretty much the whole time that I can remember. She did have a dress shop years ago in Bentonville, which back in the 80s there was just a few women's dress shops called the Gazebo, which she did for a few years and then went back into the insurance business.
Oh, so tell me, what was it like growing up in Bentonville? And tell me about did you have siblings, and what did you guys do when you were growing up?
I do. I have a sister. We're about 6 years apart. I'm very fortunate to still live in Bentonville, and so do all my girlfriends. So we're very blessed. I talk to some of my same friends that I grew up with from kindergarten on a regular basis. We all still celebrate birthdays together, and our children, we all ended up, my little group of friends, we all ended up having children the same age, so they're all in their early 20s now. But as anyone that grew up here in Bentonville will tell you, how much it's changed. But I can remember when, I don't even know if they called it Walton Boulevard at the time, but I can remember when they 4-lane 71, and we were able to walk everywhere, go to the movie theater downtown. I can remember Grease showing for seems like 6 months, but it was just a fun time, and we rode bikes to the pool, and I really don't know my roads or streets around. I know my directions, but I always do landmarks like, oh, where the old pool used to be, or oh, where the old stadium used to be. So, but I still run into quite a few classmates and their parents around town. So there are still some natives around.
So tell me about your career path that ended you up
in
the courthouse.
Sure. Well, I'll go back to high school, I guess. In Bentonville class of 1984, there was always a COE student, not a DECA student, but a cooperative office education student that the Bank of Bentonville at the time would hire. So I was asked if I wanted to interview that because I was interested in being in an office setting. So I was interviewed and I ended up being hired. So the summer before my senior year in high school, I started with, at the time, was Bank of Bentonville. So I ended up working in banking my whole early career for 22 years. So I was approached. I had worked up to vice president of corporate services for the bank at the time. So my customers that I kind of helped with their accounts and oversaw were the county, the school districts, and the city, and at the time Walmart Finance. So I was the current treasurer was retiring after being here 21 years, and I was the banker over here at the county, so I helped them with their checking accounts, whatever they might need, they would call me. So I was approached by one or two individuals and asked if I would consider running for the treasurer's position. And at the time, I thought, oh, thank you. No, I'm fine, just right where I'm at. And it was more money. It was they had written down. They finally had given me a sticky or something with an amount on it, and I just went on not really taking it serious. I was fine where I was at. I had worked myself. As I mentioned, I'd worked my way up through banking, and was very happy. So it wasn't until at the time those individuals got with my aunt, who was in politics at the time as county clerk, Marylou Slinkard, and they had approached her and said, well, do you think your niece might be willing to run? And she said, oh. And so next thing I know, I'm getting a call from my mother, and my mother's like, do we need to have a family meeting? Long story short, we did have a family meeting. I involved my husband at the time, I had not even mentioned it to him prior to these conversations. So at the time, then I said, okay, what is this involved? What's involved? I had no idea. I had met candidates. My aunt, like I said, my aunt had been county clerk and had campaigned off and on. So it wasn't until I went into our bank president at the time and kind of needed to talk to someone that was not a family member, and just said, what do you think about this idea? And next thing I know, he was all for it. I was holding a press release and on the courthouse steps, and had a small group. I did it over the lunch hour so all my friends from the bank could come over. I invited the press. I had flags out there. It was just a whole new territory for me. So and then I was already involved with a lot of different things around town with the chamber, and attended some different events through working with the bank. So then I just jumped in and started attending different chamber events. But what I had to kind of get a better grasp about is this was the county. This was countywide. So I found myself going to some of these places on the east and west side of the county that I had not really been before. And so it was a whole new ball game. But I went ahead and I was unopposed. I filed and I was unopposed, and I have been in this position ever since, and I'm in my 18th year.
Have you been opposed any of those other years?
No, I have not. And I just thank my lucky stars all the time for that, because I know new people are moving in. Our terms in the county were always 2 years until 2018, and then the public voted, and we now have 4-year terms. So I'm finishing my first 4-year term, and I'm unopposed, and I'll be continuing on for another 4 years and get sworn in 2023. So.
Good. Tell me about some of the other county officials you've worked with that have stood out over the years.
Oh gosh, there's a number of them. I've been really, so coming from the banking world, customer service was always I started at 17, so that's really all I've ever known, is to give good customer service. And so I was really a little bit kind of worried when I came to the county, because I didn't really know, coming from the corporate world over to the county. And I was really pleased. We had a great judge at the time, and he was kind of from the Walmart background, and so I was really pleased to see. His name was Gary Black, and that he continued that customer service. And so we have been meeting, so all the elected officials would start meeting every month, and so that was really great to interact with those other elected officials, and we would share what's going on in the offices. We would make some decisions and things. And then over the years, the elected officials enjoyed it so much and really felt like that needed to carry on, that the other judges that came into office also continued that. And even today, with our current judge, Barry Mooring, who is a great county judge, we still have monthly meetings, and we're able to discuss things and talk. And I think they've just all been great mentors. I have worked with worked well. I think we're just all a team. We may not always agree on things, but we're always going to discuss it and kind of know where everyone stands. And that's not how it is around the other counties in the state. So I am part of, or have been ever since I participated in the county, it's the Arkansas County Treasurers Association. So each elected office has an association, and Benton County has always been very involved. I know that several of the current elected officials in past have ran their association, have been president of their association, or at a board level on their association. So that's what happens is we would meet, it's a continuing education, we would get credits, and we would meet, typically they meet 3 times a year in the we call it a winter meeting in the spring, or summer meeting, and a fall meeting. And so that's where you gather with your peers from around the state, and you come together, and that's where you discuss, things questions. That's where you learn things. That's where new treasurers will really want to get involved and learn a lot. And that's where then legislation. So when I came into office, I was very surprised I couldn't believe how much, well, I want to say outdated, but it seemed really antiquated coming from just the little bit of the bank, where we had kind of already gone from our CRTs, and Word was kind of coming out, and even some Excel and things, and that really wasn't at the county yet when I came in 2005. So I was pretty much instrumental. We were having to keep a photocopy, 2 photocopies of each check that we would write or submit out of the office. And so it didn't take long at all for me to jump in with the association and find out that's where you get things changed. And so I was kind of working with some other treasurers around the state, and we were pretty much instrumental in getting a lot of things changed in 2006 in the next session, where we could be more electronic, or we didn't have to keep so many paper copies and things like that. And we have really advanced. Matter of fact, we consider our office now pretty all electronic. I mean, we consider now, instead of going back to an old file cabinet and pulling out a file and having paper and filing paper, we have what we call our electronic file cabinet. So with scanners and with PDF documents, things like that, we're able to scan everything in and make electronic file cabinets each year, and really recall and pull up our records. And so we've gone to many file cabinets down to one little one that's not even completely full. So I've been really proud of that, and being instrumental in really getting this office. And that's I'm not alone. I know that the circuit clerk and other offices in the county, they have really come along and advanced and grown with the times and with electronic. But I do feel like we all do get along at the county, and like I mentioned earlier, so when I go to some of those association meetings, it's you hear like, what, you have meetings with your judge? You and your judge, talk and things like that, and we do. And so I feel like Benton County, I really feel like we are unique. We're the 2nd largest county now in the state. So Pulaski County, and then Benton County, and then Washington County. So we're all what they call a Class 7 county. So that's with a population of over 250,000. So the 3 of us are kind of all, when we have these meetings, sometimes we kind of get off to the side, because it seems like some of the problems that the growth is going to be the same, that they've experienced it, and we are too. So we kind of seem to be having those growing pains and having to advance and get more electronic things, and to serve the people of the county.
Earlier you mentioned that you had worked for Bank of Bentonville, which
Yes.
is a Walton Bank.
Yes.
And then you also, you talked about a couple of the judges, current judge and then Gary Black, both with Walmart backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, I know that Walmart's been a huge impact on the county itself, but how has it affected the leadership of the county? Because some of the training, and how does that affect
Well, that's a great question because I do believe, I mean, you can't help it when you're in a job for all that time and you are taught those ways and the the customer service and the customer's number one and they're first. You can't help but think that when you come to another job, you've got all of that. So when I got here, I had to stop and remember, though, that I could only control my office. So I was always about phone etiquette. I had been, you're trained over at the bank on everything in customer service, from when the customer's face to face with you, or if they're on the phone with you, or things like that. So I remember coming and had some different training papers that I brought with me, and I thought, I'm going to get the whole county. Where I'd call different offices, and I'd notice that's not exactly how I didn't think that they should sound. So here I am trying to bring it up at elected officials meetings and hand out these handouts, and I finally had to kind of slowly learn that I can only control my office and not others. But I am happy to say, I mean, I think we do have some great employees and great leadership and elected officials, and they do training. And over the years, we have kind of come and picked up on some of that customer service. I think it kind of can spread. I think if one office can start it and then they see how that goes, and I think eventually over the last 18 years it really did. But yeah.
What kind of skills do judges like Maureen and Black bring when they've been with Walmart?
Well, I think just one, I think they have that. That team that they're going to be, that it takes a team and not just that one individual in person. I also think that they are sometimes maybe a little bit better listeners, and I mean it's pros and cons, because I've heard it too that, well, we're the county, we're not really a corporation, we don't really run like a corporation, so sometimes that we don't need that much, but I think when they come, like anyone else coming from the corporate world coming into county government, you kind of have to learn on what you can and can't do. I remember thinking I was going to be evaluated, because I'd always receive evaluations my whole career, and I remember asking, well, will the county judge evaluate me, or who gives me my yearly evaluation? Well, I was later like, well, your constituents, you're the public, the voters, that's right. So once if I'm reelected, then that's my evaluation. So but yeah, but I do think that and I guess I say that because the majority of the time that I spent with the judges, they did have that background. Others had other backgrounds. It just wasn't in a corporate Walmart setting. So,
who are some of the other county officials here that play a big role here?
Well, I mean, our circuit clerk has been here many years, and she was in the office when she ran for that office, so she's practically grown up here. I know that I feel like with our circuit clerk, Betsy Harrell, she was working in the office and knew it, from being a worker, and then she worked with Marylou Slinkard, and then Tina O'Brien was the county clerk, and then now she's the county clerk. I came in from banking not really knowing anything. It's something, we're an at-will state, and so something I was kind of taught to, or was explained to, that I could come into office, and if I wanted to get different workers, it was my choice to. And so, but at the time, I did not feel that just didn't seem fair to me. So I did interview the ladies that were currently in the office, and went through a little evaluation or just a learning to get to know each other. And then I came into office and started learning, and I put them at ease very quickly because I could see that what great workers they were and how foolish I would be to get rid of these competent workers. And now I have 2 women in my office. There's just 3 of us, and there's always just been 3 people in this office. And she's been here 30 years and has been the best asset for this office and for the county. And her name is Deanna Gutekunst. So I'm Deanna and she's Deanne, and I have Jessica. She has to listen on the phone to see kind of which way to direct the phone. But yeah, I'm just really privileged to have these workers. And I've always said this department, a lot of times other elected officials will go and they need more staff. We've grown, we need more staff, we're having these growing pains. Well, our numbers just grow. So I don't really, need additional staff. I mean, the 3 of us can do the job. We've worked it out where we have gotten, our kind of spreading our duties and even and going electronic. Being so electronic has really helped us. And even with the pandemic, we didn't miss a beat. So we were able to continue getting the mail, processing the mail through scanners, processing the mail, either taking it to the bank at the time or processing it through remote deposit capture. So our financial and working through with our financial software has just really helped us with the pandemic.
For people that may not know, I mean, how big is the county gotten? How much? What's the budget grown to, and how many employees? I mean, is it more than people think?
Well, we yes, I would think so. So we're clear up to probably 750, almost close to 800 employees at the time, right now. And so I know that our budgets, we have a comptroller in the county, and I know that our budgets and our sales tax, I mean, all of our numbers have just exploded. And so I know as far as my personal budget for the office, I should say, has not grown that much. It's pretty much stayed the same. It was, mostly maybe some salaries, but as far as line items and things like that. But as far as our county growth, yeah, we're seeing numbers now, especially our distributions. A lot of people don't realize that the treasurer is considered in law the disbursement officer for the county. So what that means is we're kind of, I would think of us as the last, I like that team atmosphere, and so we're like the last leg of the team here. So for instance, Gloria Peterson, our tax collector, her office she's charged with collecting the ad valorem taxes, and then she office transmits that to my office. Then my responsibility is to accurately and timely distribute that money to our taxing units, which I kind of I call our customers too, would be the schools and the cities and the volunteer fire department. And then what's also then payroll is kind of handed off from our HR department. We're the last leg. Then we would disperse and we ACH or pay our customers by direct deposit, and then also print checks out of here. Same with our payables. The county, we have an accounting department, and that falls under the comptroller, and the comptroller falls under the county judge. And they are responsible for approving purchase orders and the money that the county spends. So once that's all approved, it eventually ends up at my office, and we disperse that out so we pay our vendors either electronically or by check.
So you essentially pay bills that someone else has agreed to pay.
True, yes. And we also are responsible for receipting all the money in, so all the money that comes into the county. So there's a few elected officials that receive their own money into those accounts, and they're required to what they call settle with me by the 10th business day of the month. So we receive all the money in from the county into our checking account, and that's what I'm responsible for. And then also I work closely with other banks as far as investing our funds. We have each county and municipality should have a depository board, which is made up of your county judge, your county tax collector, and your treasurer. And we meet and we will look at the banks, look at our investments, look at the amount that we need to invest, and discuss that as a group before we invest in that.
Good. Is there anything else you can think about that's interesting or that is important, maybe that I haven't thought to ask about?
No, I just think that I think what I find the most interesting is probably, when we did start, we used these large red binder books, and it was all, you had to write in hand, and like I mentioned, we had to keep photocopies and cabinets, and we had bankers boxes everywhere, and now, just to see it revolve into this more of electronic and this scanners, and we're able to drill down and send receipts and send copies of receipts now, and no faxing, things like that. And that's been really a big I guess the biggest change, I think, over the last 18 years, and I'm excited to see maybe what else is in store, what's the next one, the next new electronic device or whatever it might be that we end up using here in the county.
Couple last questions. If someone came to you and said, tell me about your hometown of Bentonville and Benton County, what's it like? What would you tell them?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love my hometown. I love Bentonville. I'm really a big cheerleader for Bentonville. So every time I go out or talk somewhere on vacation, or I meet people, or I let them know, and I would just tell them that you're gonna. It feels like it used to be a small town, and now it's gotten up to be a big town, but I still feel like we have that small town atmosphere, and that's what I hear from all these people moving in, that, oh my gosh, how friendly, or they're just not used to this, people, greeting them on the street or giving them a smile or anything like that. And so, I used to be the president of our chamber board, and so I've just always been a big, cheerleader for our for Bentonville and the whole county, the whole not just Bentonville, but for our whole county. And so I know that everywhere I go, people are hearing, oh, Bentonville, and so of course I talk about Crystal Bridges, but now I can pull in our James Beard winning as far as the food area goes, and then as far as our mountain biking and our trails, and there's just a lot to offer here. My son's 25, and he's out on his own and working, and it's been really neat to see him come now downtown, and there's so many different places that he can hang out off the square. I can remember being in the 70s, and my cousins would all you'd cruise the square, and go around the square and everything, and then it kind of died off and everything. But then, and so we really didn't do that when I was in high school and stuff. But then it started kind of slowly coming back, and I remember being excited with my daughter and her friends, and they want to go to the square. Can we go to the square? Can we go get ice cream? Can we hang out the square? So it started then, and then it's still continuing now. So I think it's a neat thing. If anyone comes down here on any night of the week now to go around the square, how crowded it is, and people out talking and visiting and having ice cream. And so lots of changes, but I think it's been for the best.
One last question for you. If you had to finish this sentence, my favorite thing about Benton County is
The people. I think the people. I mean, yeah, I would think the people that I get to meet, and you know, even the ones moving in, I think that they see what we have to offer here, and I mean, I think, you know, they're very grateful and thankful that they found this place.